We have two formats for participation, the Zoom web application, as well as teleconference. Before we begin, I want to review some guidelines and general instructions for the meetings. These are important. I ask that you pay close attention. Please silence your other communication devices, such as your cell or desk phone. This will ensure that we're not hearing any feedback or causing interruption during the meeting. During the meeting, all participants on Zoom, except for board members and South Coast AQMD staff, will be placed on mute by the host. That means that you won't be able to mute or unmute your lines manually. And after each agenda item, the chair will announce public comment. For the video instructions for those on Zoom, if you would like to make a public comment on the Zoom screen, please click on the raised hand button, and this will signal to the host that you'd like to provide public comment, and you'll be added to the list. If you're using Zoom on your smartphone, please tap the raised hand button on the bottom of the screen. And for those calling in using the phone line only, you can dial *9 on your keypad to signal us that you'd like to comment. Your name will be called when it's your turn to comment, and the host will unmute your line automatically. Please note you can hang up or leave the Zoom meeting at any time. And Dr. Burke, that concludes my comments, and it is now 10 o'clock.
It is now 10 o'clock. Okay. We will begin today's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like Mr. Cacchiotti, if he'd be kind enough to lead us in that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My honor. Please stand and face the flag. Lift up your heart. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic which it
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we start out with any board member concerns this morning. Do I have any?
Dr. Berg?
Yes.
Hey, could we do a quick roll call? I'd recommend.
Oh, absolutely. Nancy, would you call the roll?
Here, Councilmember Benoit.
Here.
Councilmember Cacchiotti.
Here.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Here.
Dr. Burke.
Here. Is anyone missing?
All present.
All present. Okay. Does any of the present members have any board member concerns?
None here.
Hearing none. Do we have any travel, Mr. Nastri?
No, sir, no travel.
Okay. And then I assume that's no out of country travel?
That's
And does
correct.
any of the board members have any questions as it relates to the November 6th governing board agenda? Hearing none. Do we have any board member assistance to be approved today?
No, sir.
Okay, say, Judy, you can leave now. Okay, update on the South Coast AQMD inclusion, diversity, and equity efforts.
Thank you, Dr. Burke. We continue our efforts, and if you can go to the next slide, please, Ron. As you know, we formed the IDEA panel, the Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Advisory Panel. It's a good representation of our organization. In addition to meeting with the IDEA panel, Jill and I have also had the opportunity to meet with the Black Employees Group, as well as the Hispanic and Latinx group, which are calling themselves HALOs, Hispanic and Latinx Organizations for Success. And I would say that they were both very encouraging, very positive meetings, and really focused on moving forward and doing it in an equitable way, which is what this is all about. One of the things that we had talked about early on was the Government Accountability for Race and Equity Organization. We've had early participation, but we're now expanding that. And so the expanded participation training will include myself, Jill Wynot, John Alvera, as well as 2 members of the IDEA panel. And I think one of the most exciting things we have to report with regards to our work in this is that just last week, the board approved the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. And so we are working on the job description on that, and we hope to get that out soon. And we'll keep you apprised of all of our actions along the way. Go to the next slide, please. So as we talked about the IDEA panel, they too have been very busy. And what they've been working on is defining the framework, if you will, or their operational parameters in terms of how they work. Are they going to be on a term? How are people replaced? How are people recruited in for this? And they're making tremendous progress on all of this. They're also looking at the hundreds of comments that we had received when we did our original survey and actually trying to help prioritize some of those comments. Obviously, the early recommendations were to move forward with the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. In fact, we've done that. And then as well as working on recommendations for staff training. So we're pulling together a lot of those type of classes and trying to get input from the different groups to see sort of where those priorities lie. Go to the next slide, please. Yes, sir, Doctor.
But the IDEA panel is made up of you, Jill, and who?
So the IDEA panel actually isn't made up of anybody from the Executive Council. The IDEA panel is made up from staff, and it's representative of staff across the entire organization. So in general, I would say that it represents about 2 people from each division. There were, some divisions that we didn't quite have that, but I want to say there's about 19 people on the panel that are primary members. And one of the other aspects of that is that they'll look at forming subcommittees. But the concept, Dr. Burke, is that the IDEA panel will make recommendations to the Executive Council, to the senior leadership.
Who picked the people?
Dr. Burke, I think what you were referring to, Wayne mentioned that there's in-depth training provided by GARE, the Government Accountability for Race and Equity, and that he, Jill, and John, along with 2 members from the IDEA panel, would be participating in that. That's what I think. That's
I think you're right. I think you're right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
But my question still stands. Who picks the two members of the of each department?
So when you were talking about the IDEA panel, I think that's what you're referring to. So that was a combination of the entire EC looking across people who had volunteered or submitted their names for consideration for that. So we had a long discussion amongst the Executive Council, and we picked, I ultimately picked the participants in that.
Okay.
And so with regards to future actions, as I just described, we're going to be hopefully going out soon with the job advertisement, recruiting for the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Officer. Look forward to getting the additional recommendations from the IDEA committee. And as I said before, beginning the training classes. And really the training classes, I think, are the exciting part for us. So that'll give us an opportunity to have the initial core group trained, and we can also then work with our additional staff as we move forward. So the next slide, please. So just in summary, we continue to engage in this effort with all of our employees. We plan to continue providing monthly updates to the admin committee and really appreciate all of the suggestions from the board. And at this point, I would just say that, we're extremely proud of all of the staff and their efforts. And we're certainly committed to improving this process, recognizing that it is not something that we can just do overnight, that is going to be a long and ongoing process. And that we continue to intend to work with not just here inside the organization, but our partners in the community. And that concludes my comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Nastri? I think you're moving along in a great expeditious manner.
Thank you, Dr. Burke.
I think
We're trying.
Oh yeah, there's no question. You're doing a job too. Okay, Jill, it's you.
Good morning, Dr. Burke and members of the committee. I've got a brief update for you on the budget and economic outlook. We can go right to slide 2. Basically, we had a partial update last month at the board. We went through September 25th. So I've got updates on several slides that I'll show in a moment to get us through the month end. Revenue slide, please, slide 3. So revenue ticked up a little bit from last month. We got an additional approximately $3 million from what we showed last month on this chart. However, we're not too excited about that because it's basically made up of 2 streams of revenue that we normally get in October. They were just a little early this year. So we're right about on par for the revenue. Expenditures are next, slide 4.
What was the $3 million? Who was that?
We got 2 checks of about $1.5 million each. One was the income that we get from the DMV fees, and the other was income for the portable equipment registration program, or the statewide PERP equipment. Those are the engines that get registered throughout the state rather than individual districts. So
So
we
it
got
was state money.
those.
It was state money. It had nothing to do with the private sector.
Correct.
Okay.
Expenditures are up just a little bit from last month or last week. Last week, we spent a little bit less than $100,000 on miscellaneous expenses on communications, postage, nothing too remarkable. The next slide on permit activity. We actually reported last month that there were 590 so far, and so that went up 70. So we have about 680 permits, and we still may get some more coming in into our system from there. I also need to point out that last week, inadvertently, the August and September lines, the blue 2019 numbers, were backwards. So that's corrected now and will be corrected going forward. It didn't affect the total for year to date. And the little influx that we had of the additional permits really didn't move the needle much. We're still down 21% year to date on the permits. September was actually a pretty good month, so we hope that we'll see that trend continue. Let's go to the next slide, please. For fee review requests last week, there were 5. For the month of September, we only got 1 more fee review request, so we're still looking fairly good recently for the fee review committee requests. Okay, next slide, please. Last week for September, the initial number of potentially expired permits was 529. When we sent these slides out earlier this week, it was 487. And as of yesterday, we're down to about 340. So a lot of the companies that had the expired permits are making good on those already. We actually have 10 companies out of the 339 that make up over 130 of the permits. And so we're working with them to reach out. So that number should continue to go down. And we're doing outreach to all the companies, letting them know we can give them a payment plan or provide any other assistance we can. And then the last update is on the CEQA activity. Next slide, please. Last month, we reported 63 CEQA documents that had come in September for staff to review, and we received another 10 last month. So this is actually the first time this year that there's an appreciable increase month over month, but overall year to year, we're still down a little bit. And that concludes the updates. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from Ms. Wynot? Good job, Jill. You keep bringing good news, we'll keep you.
I'd love it.
Anytime, I know. Okay, Ron, it's up to you.
Morning, Dr. Burke, members of the committee. Ron Moskowitz, Chief Information Officer. We've been developing a system to automate all our contract processes to be 100% electronic with digital signatures, integrating with DocuSign. This will eliminate mountains of paperwork and significantly improve staff efficiency. We estimate to go live with this project in about 3 weeks. And as of this morning, we now have a total of 38,020 people using our mobile app. Just in the last 3 months, we gained about 20,000 new installs. We continue to enhance and improve the app, and we'll be releasing a new AQI gridded map by the end of the year. We're on track with all our other projects, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ron?
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
I was a little disheartened this morning. I was watching the Channel 5 news, and the guy was on from Joe Lou's place, whatever you call that place. And-
Coalition for Clean Air.
Yes, Coalition. And he was talking about among other things, the apps that you can check to get your air quality in your neighborhood. And he mentioned everybody in the world but us.
Uh,
I'd hate to think that's retribution for us not. Did we sponsor their event or not sponsor their?
We did sponsor their event.
Yeah, okay. Well, you might want to have somebody give them a call.
Yeah.
If they recognize that we do have an app that does that.
Thank you. Was it Bill McGavern, Dr. Burke, or was it Chris Chavez or Dr. Lou?
No, it wasn't Joe, but it was one of, I don't know those guys.
What,
The guy on Channel 5.
Okay, I'll find out. Thank you.
Maybe our outreach people can get you the interview from 5 so you can see for yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sunjata, you're up to bat.
All right. Good morning, Dr. Burke and members of the committee. Sujata Jain, Chief Financial Officer. This item is to release 2 RFPs. One is for software system development and maintenance for the IM division. And the other one is for audit services for the AB 2766 audit, which is audit of 2 years, 17-18 and 18-19. Happy to answer questions on that one, Dr. Burke.
Does anybody have any questions from Ms. Sunjata on this item? Hearing none, why don't you move to 10?
Thank you, Dr. Burke. And so this item is to basically ask for appropriation authority about $1.7 million for the AB 2766 implementation funds. We received these funds in June. This was the 3rd round of AB 617 funds. And this is also to seek authorization for the executive officer to execute contracts, issue POs, or capital equipment that support this grant and activity.
So far this year, how far are we behind the past year in receiving 617 funds?
Dr. Burke, we received the 3rd round in June of 2020. So we have the money.
But do we have the same money we had last year?
We have a little bit more than the 2nd round. The 2nd round was about 20 million. This 3rd round is 21.88 million.
No, that wasn't my question. My question was, at this time last year, how does it equate to what we have this year at this time? Am I not making can somebody help me out?
Dr. Sujata, I think what Dr. Burke's asking is, didn't we have the funds earlier this year than we did last year? Last year, I thought we didn't get them until the very end of the year.
No,
And
it's
same.
not- It's not the time, it's the amount.
We actually got a little bit more this year, Dr. Burke, than last year. And I think
Okay.
what Sujata just said is that the timing's the same.
Same.
Okay. So I thought we were expecting less.
On the incentive funding, Dr. Burke, we're expecting less because that was tied directly to the GHG account. But on the implementation funding, that wasn't tied this year.
Okay. All right. So your item needs a motion, Sunjata.
Yes, Dr. Burke.
Okay, I'll accept a motion on this item.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Would the clerk call the roll?
Councilmember Benoit,
Aye.
Councilmember Caciotti,
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Yes.
Dr. Burke,
Yes.
motion passes 4-0.
I just realized you're in the office, Nancy.
I know, I need to get that big screen back up.
must have done something terrible.
Very nice in the office, Dr. Burke. Indeed.
Okay, okay. I noticed you said that, not Nancy. Item 11.
Yes, Dr. Burke, this is just the board meeting schedule for calendar year 21. Just two items of note. The January board meeting, instead of being on New Year's Day, we've pushed back a week. So it would now be on January 8th. And then again, we'll be dark in July as opposed to August in the previous year, since that was the direction.
That really worked out very, very well.
Yeah.
And Ben, are you going down to Cabo for Christmas?
Not for Christmas, no.
Okay. Okay. Can I get a motion on this item?
I'll move adoption of the resolution.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Benoit,
Aye.
Councilmember Caccioti,
yes.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Yes.
Dr. Burke,
Yes.
motion passes 4-0.
Item 12. Is Mr. Alatorre here, or did he mail this in?
I'm here, Dr. Burke. It's just a standard written report, no motion required. Or
Okay.
SBA.
Thank you very much for that. Sorry. Mr. Nastri, we ought to think about this. I've only been here a short time, but I don't ever remember anybody ever asking a question on the local business, government, and small business advisory group. Why do we make Mr. Alatorre come to this meeting? I'm happy to have him. I'm happy to have him, but
Wayne, I can answer that. So
Please,
Dr. Burke, is in the charter, local gov small business assistance reports to admin committee. So
Okay.
that's why we have this report.
Got
And they have in the last 2 years had one item that they wanted to tell us what they thought about it and have sent us one report. So it has happened once in the last couple of years.
okay. Then moving to item 13, other business. Is there any other business before the admin committee? Do we have any public comment at any location on this Zoom call?
No public comment.
Okay, then our next meeting will be November 13th, 2020 at 10 a.m. Thank you, everyone, for calling, and have a nice weekend.
Thank you, Dr. Burke. Thanks, everybody.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye-bye, everybody.